In this website, I'm going to show you how to take an email, send that email, and have some information get populated in a SharePoint list, then save the attachment from the email into a SharePoint folder, and I'll show you how to do it all using Power Automate. So let's go ahead and send the email. Okay, so you'll see that this information has populated here in the assigned date, the requester, the assigned, and the legal description. Now, where do we get this information? I'll show you in just a second. In addition, we had a folder get created with what we're calling the legal description, a portion of the subject line of the email that created a folder. In addition, you'll see that that PDF that was the attachment in the email has now been saved into that folder. So how was all this done? So I'll hop into a Power Automate and break it down for you. So right now I have it connected to Gmail. It's very similar if you were to connect it to Outlook, but there's an option for a trigger that when a new email arrives. And so I went ahead, and the only thing I tweaked, I believe, is this include attachments. Default was no. I went ahead and made sure to have yes as this option. But yeah, whenever you go ahead and set up this step, you'll be asked to log into your email service. And so it should be fairly straightforward at that point. The next step here is to split the email subject. So if we go back and, or I guess you can see the email subject here. Yeah, you can see it at the top of this tab. You'll see what we have is an ID as the first portion, then there's a semicolon, and then there's what we were calling the legal description as the second portion of the subject. And so what we're wanting to do is split the subject by this delimiter. In this case, it's a semicolon. So that's what this step is doing. So within Power Automate, it's the compose step, I believe. Data operation. So you'll select this data operation and then yes, this compose step. And so then from here, whenever we're in the input portion, we can select dynamic content, or what we really want to do is create a function or an expression. And so what I've got here is split, and then you can use dynamic content from the previous step. So we want to select the subject, and you'll see that it grabs that parameter, and then what we want to split by is, in our case, the delimiter is the semicolon. So that's what the function would look like. You'd hit add, but I already have it built out here, so this is that expression that you'd want to put in here. Then the next step is to trim the billing code and that legal description that we had previously. And so again, all that we're going to do is add an expression. So you can do this insert expression. I'll show it to you here, and you can use dynamic content like I showed in the previous step. The key here is to put a 0 in this in the brackets, because this is going to be the first portion of that split text. And then you're basically going to duplicate that step to trim the legal description and remove any leading or trailing white spaces. It's going to be the same as the previous step, except for instead of 0, you're going to put 1 in here. So that's going to grab the second portion of that array that was created whenever we split the text by the semicolon. Then this third step is going to be, or this fourth step is going to be to split the to name and email. So this step is going to have who the email was sent to, and it's going to have it as a name and an email. And we're going to want to use that name in a subsequent step without the email. So what that looks like here, the delimiter that we're splitting on, is this open or less than sign, and so that's what this expression would look like. Then we want to trim that name, and so all we're doing again is applying a trim to remove any leading and trailing spaces surrounding the name, and again to grab the first portion of the array that's split, we'll use this 0 index. Then we'll go ahead and create a file. So this is the step that's going to save the file into the SharePoint folder, or it's going to save the attachment from the email into the SharePoint folder. So we select the SharePoint site address that we want. Then we create this folder path. So what's going to happen, it's going to look for that existing folder. If it doesn't find that existing folder, then it's going to go ahead and create a new one. So we've got shared documents that'll likely be common for most people out there. Then we're going to go ahead and leverage the outputs from some of the previous steps. So if I hover over this, the first one is the name of the to line. So that's this step here. And then the next one will be, in this case, we're going to use the legal description as the folder name. So it's going to go in the individuals folder, and then it's going to create a legal description folder, and it's going to save the attachment in that legal description folder. One little nuance, that as you type a slash in this portion, it's going to want you to put in dynamic content or an expression. So it gets a little finicky whenever you're manually typing in these forward slashes. And so one way to get around it is to go ahead and put a space in there, and then select your dynamic content from that point, and then you can just go over here and delete that space. And then as far as the file name goes, I just used the name of the file from the trigger step, and then I also just selected the file content from the trigger step. It's going to automatically create a loop here because it's going to assume that there could be more than one attachment. In this case, we just had the one attachment and everything works fine, even if it does loop through that one attachment. Then this next step is to get the item from the SharePoint list. So we'll go ahead and select the SharePoint site address. Then we'll go ahead and select the name of the list from the dropdown. And then the filter query that we want to put on here is billing code is equal to the trimmed billing code from our previous step. So that's the unique identifier that we're essentially using as our lookup reference on which record within this list to update. And so, yep, that's all that's doing is searching for that billing code, and then it's going to find that row, or in this case, that SharePoint item of the list. And then, again, it's going to create a loop here as well, because it's thinking maybe, it's got more than one, maybe it's got more than one billing code or unique identifier. Again, we only have the one, and so it still works fine with just the one list item. So for this update item step, we'll go ahead and select the site address, select the list name. We're going to use the ID that we got from the previous step, and then we'll go ahead and populate it with the, map the information that we want to use to populate the list. So I went ahead and used the received date to indicate that, hey, this email was sent and it was assigned to that individual upon that date. So we'll go ahead and say that was the assigned date. Then these are requester claims, and yeah, so the requester is who the email was sent from, and the assigned is who the email was sent to. In this case, it was sent from the demo account to my work account, and so that's why the names are showing up as the same. And then this last portion is that legal description that we were talking about, the second portion of the subject line that we wanted to go ahead and use to populate this list. So that's all that's done there. One thing that you may notice is we used a trim in the to line to get the individual's name to split it from the email. I didn't see a spot where it just had the recipient as their name individually. It came with the email, whereas in this case I was able to get the sender's name without having to put some sort of split of that sender output. Then yeah, so name of the to line, and then the trimmed legal description from previous step, and that's pretty much it. Again, if you have more complex situations that you'd like me to look into, by all means reach out to me, or if you have any questions about this process, reach out to me. Otherwise, I hope this helps, and happy Wimpacting.